So our presenter tonight is Jenny Lobb. She's a family and consumer sciences educator for OSU Extension in Franklin County. She has a bachelor's in human nutrition and a master's in public health, both from OSU. She's also registered and licensed as a dietitian in the state of Ohio. As an extension educator, she specializes in food, nutrition, and wellness, and enjoys teaching about healthy eating, active living, and using mindfulness to cope with stress. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jenny.
Thank you, and thank you all for joining me this evening. This is our third and final session in this mindfulness series. So at the beginning of the month, I taught a class that was an overview of mindfulness and shared some different ways to practice mindfulness. Mindful eating being one example, and we're going to take a deeper dive into that tonight. And then the second class was on mindful breathing and how to use breathing techniques as a mindfulness practice. And both of those previous sessions were recorded, so you can access those on the library's YouTube channel if you want to revisit them or go and view them if you didn't get a chance to attend. But whether or not you were part of those classes, it wasn't necessarily a prerequisite for tonight. So I hope that you will benefit from tonight's information, whether you were part of those classes or not. Tonight, we are going to talk about mindful eating, try to unpack that a little bit. I'll share what mindful eating entails. I'll share some of the benefits of mindful eating. And then if we were together in the same room, we would do a mindful eating practice together. I would typically bring a small food item like individually wrapped chocolates or a small piece of fruit like a clementine or a box of raisins. Since we're not together in the same room tonight, I will share a mindful eating script that you can use to practice on your own, just recognizing that we're all in different places tonight. You may or may not be hungry. We're all going to have different things on hand depending on where we're set up tonight. So rather than trying to do that actual practice, I'll share some resources you can use to do that practice when you are most comfortable trying it out. So we're going to jump right in and revisit our definition of mindfulness. This comes from Jon Kabat-Zinn, who is recognized as a pioneer in American mindfulness from his work that started all the way back in the late 70s when he created a meditation program to help people living with chronic pain. And so Jon Kabat-Zinn defines mindfulness as paying attention in a particular way. It's on purpose, it is in the present moment, and it's non-judgmental. So when we think about this definition of mindfulness, how would you then define mindful eating? Before I share a formal definition of mindful eating, I'll invite you to open up the chat if you're comfortable and share what you think mindful eating might entail, thinking about how you could use eating as a way to pay attention on purpose in the present moment and non-judgmentally. Does anyone want to take a stab at defining mindful eating for us? You could even just share a word or two about what you think it might entail. I'm not seeing anything, and that's all right. So one definition of mindful eating is being aware of your eating habits, the sensation you experience when you eat, and the thoughts and emotions that you have about food. In many ways, it's more about how you eat than it is about what you eat. And I do see some comments coming in now. So savoring food, taking time to appreciate a specific flavor or texture, or even the source of your food, absolutely. An appreciation of the food that you're eating. Yes, so these are all ways to describe mindful eating or apply this practice of mindfulness to our eating occasions. When we eat mindfully, we use all our senses. So we are not just tasting, but we are using our sense of smell. We're using our eyes to see the food and, see the colors, for example. We're using we're using the sense of touch. How does it feel when you pick it up? How does it feel in your mouth? What sort of a texture does it have? So you're using your different senses, and you're acknowledging your response to food without judgment. That's where that non-judgmental piece comes in. So rather than thinking, oh, I really should like this food, and maybe criticizing yourself for not liking something you think you should, or, really enjoying something that is perhaps considered not so healthy, you're just acknowledging your responses to food. What is pleasurable? What is, not so pleasurable, without judgment. You are becoming aware of the nurturing opportunities that are available through food. So we might start to think about how food provides nutrients, provides nourishment, provides a sense of fullness, maybe a sense of even pride through preparing your own food or thinking about where your food comes from. There is a children's book that I really like. It's called Before We Eat, From Farm to Table. And this particular book is kind of a mindfulness practice that really centers on thinking about all the labor that goes through that's part of the process of getting food to the table. So starting to think about, where your food comes from, and cultivating this sense of gratitude for everything that went into bringing it to you, to your plate, to your table. Mindful eating also involves an awareness of your own hunger and satiety cues. So thinking about how hungry or how full you are before and while you're eating, and how your food helps to meet that physical need of hunger, and using those hunger and satiety cues to guide your decisions to begin and end your eating. And so by starting to eat more mindfully, by thinking about, how your food tastes, smells, feels, whether it's pleasurable or not, how it's nourishing your body, how it's meeting a physical need, you can actually start to change your relationship to food. Some of the benefits of mindful eating that are supported by research are that it can help reduce binge eating, and it can help with weight control. It can help someone consume fewer calories, perhaps even lose weight or reduce their BMI. It can help people cope with chronic eating problems, perhaps eating disorder or emotional eating. But whether or not, you are concerned with weight control, or whether you're trying to lose weight, mindful eating can help you just feel good mentally and physically after eating. And you may even find that you enjoy your food more by stopping to think about how it's nourishing you, and how it can even be a pleasurable experience when you think about the taste, and so forth. Mindful eating can help, it's been shown to help reduce anxious thoughts about your body and food. It's been shown to help improve symptoms of type 2 diabetes. So lots of different applications of how mindful eating can be beneficial, both physically and mentally. One way to think about mindful eating is on a scale. So if we think of our hunger and satiety cues on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 is hungry, maybe, hangry, where you're hungry, you're irritable, you may even start to feel faint and will eat just about anything that's put in front of you. You may have trouble stopping once you start eating. That's one end of the scale. And then on the other end of the scale would be full to the point of pain and discomfort. In the middle of this scale is our mindful eating zone. It's neutral, so to speak, where you are eating to prevent or to meet your need if you're hungry, eating to meet your need if you're hungry or prevent hunger, and stopping when you are full, when you're aware of the food in your stomach and you feel satisfied before you get to the point of any discomfort. So what we're striving for, if you are striving to start a mindful eating practice, is to cue into those hunger and satiety cues and stay in that neutral zone where you recognize when you're starting to get hungry and you eat until satisfied and not beyond. Some of the cornerstones of mindful eating are awareness. So are you really tasting your food? Are you aware of what you're putting into your body? Or are you mindlessly munching away? Oftentimes, we live busy lives and it's easy to eat a meal without stopping to think about how it tastes. And it's hard sometimes to remember later in the day or the next day what you had to eat. So mindful eating starts with trying to become aware of what you're eating and how it's nourishing your body. Savoring is another cornerstone of mindful eating, and that was one that came up when I asked you to define mindful eating. So starting to savor what you eat, noticing the texture, the aroma, the flavor, and how it's pleasant or not. Observation, so observing not just what you're eating, but how you feel, how your body feels before and after you eat. And then non-judgment, we talked about that a little bit already, but being compassionate to yourself instead of being ruled, instead of letting the shoulds or the food rules to dictate what you eat and how you feel about food. So, just being non-judgmental, recognizing what you enjoy and what you don't, and not feeling guilty about those reactions to food. So of these cornerstones of mindful eating, awareness is a big one, because we have to first be aware of our thoughts and our habits before we can hope to change them. Awareness leads to change. So if you're wanting to start a mindful eating practice, it might be helpful to start observing some of your habits or your patterns. Start to be aware of your thoughts towards food, and choose which habits to build upon and which ones you might abandon. So I'm trying to get away of autopilot type behaviors and strengthen habits that are more intentional, that are more mindful. And some of those autopilot behaviors could be overeating or undereating. Sometimes we have perhaps trigger foods where, it's before you know it, you've eaten more than you need to feel full or would have liked to eat. Under eating, where we're just so busy, we don't stop to notice our hunger. And emotional eating. So are there times perhaps where you're using food to cope with stress or other emotions? And might there be something else you could do to cope with stress? Because you're kind of cueing into your hunger cues at that point and building an awareness that you're not truly hungry. So trying to observe those habits, those thoughts, what, when, why you're eating, and build upon the positive, the intentional, and try to shift away from the autopilot or habits that aren't so helpful or mindful. Some mindful eating tips, in addition to being aware of thoughts and feelings, is try to eliminate distractions. First of all, it's hard to be aware or mindful or attentive when there are distractions in the room. So unplugging or stepping away from the computer, putting your phone or tablet away, turning off the TV, eating at the table, if that's not something that you already do, if that's possible, and even taking time to set the table. You could even pay attention, make that a mindfulness practice to the table setting, the silverware, the plates, the napkins, the tablecloth, any centerpieces. Eliminating some of those distractions can be incredibly helpful as you're trying to build awareness of your thoughts and feelings towards food. And if you need some, kind of cues to things to think about when you're trying to be mindful, are observing flavors as they come and go, noticing cravings, taking things one bite at a time. So staying with the taste of one bite before moving to the next. So maybe it's finishing a bite before you prepare to take the next. And then exercising your power to choose. So, if you're recognizing that you're craving something specific, or that something really just doesn't taste good, you can choose what to eat. You can choose how much to eat. You can choose when to eat. So if you notice that perhaps you're not truly hungry at a specific point in time, you have the power to choose to eat something different or at a different time that will be more satisfying. If you need some tips to slow things down a little bit so that you can be more mindful, of course, turning off the technology can be helpful, as I already mentioned. But some additional tips to help slow down are maybe choosing to eat with your non-dominant hand. That takes more thought and effort for many of us. So that might be a method to help slow down. Or just simply setting your silverware down between bites might be a way to slow down a little bit, or taking a sip of water between bites. And for some people, having a conversation with others might be a way to slow down. For others, that might be a distraction. So that might be a tip that works for you, or it might be a distraction if you're trying to start a mindful eating practice. What other ideas do you have to slow down? If you have an idea that I didn't already mention, please feel free to share those in the chat. Some additional ideas for starting a daily mindful eating practice are to just start with one snack or meal a day. So rather than trying to do mindful eating, all the time, it's not an all or nothing thing. Start with one snack or one meal, and then build on that as you become more successful with really being mindful in the moment for that one occasion. You might choose a time when you can focus, a time without a lot of distractions. And that's going to be different for different people. Maybe breakfast or a morning meal might be an easier time for some, when you can sit down at the table and enjoy a cup of tea or coffee, and practice mindful eating first thing in the morning. Maybe mornings are hectic for you, and that would not be a good time to try this out. Maybe a snack later in the day, or dinner time. For others, maybe dinner time is the rush. So you know what works for you and when might be the best time to try out your mindful eating practice. You can also, start with simple foods, things that aren't triggers. So, if you're someone who really craves salty or sweet and it's hard to stop when you're eating a food that you really enjoy, something that's a little more simple, maybe a fruit, where you can eat more slowly and cue into when you're hungry, when you're no longer hungry, when you're satisfied, might be better. And along the same vein, you might want to stay away from foods with stronger flavors that might be off-putting, depending on how fresh they are or how they're prepared. Whatever you're eating and whenever you're eating, you want to offer the meal your full attention and use all of your senses, and then build upon your successes as you are going along. I do see the suggestion, maybe try a new food that you've never had before, or try eating it in a new environment. Those are great suggestions. So trying something new that's not routine may be an opportunity to pay a little bit more attention to either the food or the experience as a whole. So at this point, as I said, if we were together, I would talk you through a mindful eating practice. But what I'm going to do tonight is go to the website, the Center for Mindful Eating's website, and they have quite a few recordings that are freely available. So if you go to their website, the centerformindfuleating.org, you can access these recordings, and most of them are about 5 minutes long. They're not all related to mindful eating. Some of them are related to mindfulness in general, or even cultivating gratitude or loving kindness, for example. The mindfully eating raisins is a good one if you want to practice mindful eating. So that's, a script I would often use if we were together. I would pass out something like a box of raisins, and it's, eating raisins almost painfully slow, where you really stop to look at them, look at their shape, their size, their color, eat them one at a time and taste, smell, and so forth. So if you want to practice mindfully eating raisins, you can certainly do that on your own. But what I'm going to play now is eating a mindful meal or snack, and this will talk you through what it might feel like to actually put this mindful eating into practice.
Here are the instructions for eating a mindful meal or snack. We will be using the basics of mindful eating in order to determine hunger, choose and assess your food, slowly eat and savor, and stop when you are satisfied. As best you can, approach this eating exercise with mindful openness and curiosity. Before eating, bring awareness to your body and your breathing. Let your belly be soft and full. Take 3 full deep breaths. Let the breath relax you and help you settle into the present moment. Start by checking in to see how hungry you are. How hungry are you on a scale of 1 to 10? Explore what hunger feels like in the belly, noticing its pleasant and unpleasant qualities. Notice the sensations in the mouth and in the belly that occur with the mere thought of eating. If you haven't chosen food to eat yet, check in to see what would taste good right now. Can you get a sense of what the body would like to eat, or what tastes would be pleasing to you? Once you have your food in front of you, take some time to assess it. What does it look like? What is the color and shape? Where did it come from? How nourishing do you think it is? What does it smell like? Acknowledge the importance of food for your body's health. When you eat, can you take your time? You can slow down by chewing your food thoroughly and by putting down your fork or spoon between bites. Watch any distractions or thoughts. Let them come and go. Keep coming back to the sensations involved in eating and tasting. As you eat, notice whether you are enjoying the food or not. Focus on the sensations of taste: sweet, sour, salty, pungent. Keep coming back to the taste of your food. If you notice you aren't enjoying it, can you stop eating? If you enjoy it, how present are you for the pleasure of the experience? Savor your food. Throughout the meal, noticing how your hunger level moves toward feeling satisfied. Particularly halfway through, stop and assess where your hunger level is again. If you're hungry, continue to eat. But if you're noticing a sense of satisfaction, stop. Notice if it is difficult to stop at this point, and inquire as to why. Give yourself permission to stop, even if there is some food left on the plate. Or if you normally would eat more, notice what it feels like to stop before complete fullness. Exploring the pleasant and unpleasant aspects of this. Remind yourself that you can always have more later. What thoughts and emotions are present as you eat and as you decide to stop? What beliefs and stories do you tell yourself about food and eating? Be present for the last bite as fully as you were for the first bite. And if you eat more than enough or feel too full, knowing that you have not blown it, but that you are now simply aware of this fullness. It takes time to learn new ways of eating and stopping. Every time that you eat is a time to practice again. Practice bringing kindness to yourself and curiosity to the practice of mindful eating. What did you notice? Which of the basics is the most difficult for you? Which are the easiest? How is this different from the way you normally eat? How will it change the way you eat in the future? Eating meals and snacks with the basics of mindful eating as your guide can help you begin to uncover your mindless eating habits. Awareness of your current habits is the first step toward changing them.
All right. I will share the link to this website in the chat if it's something that you want to check out on your own. And like I said, most of these are about 5 minutes long. There is one that's longer. The mindful exploration of hunger is about 15 minutes long. And they preface that one by sharing that it's really designed to be done when you have the time to really think about and then prepare what you are craving or what you want to eat. So great resources there from the Center for Mindful Eating. And at this point, I'm happy to address any questions that you have. If you also have any comments or reflections related to that practice, feel free to share those as well, either by unmuting or you can use the chat box. And while I have your attention, I do also want to share an upcoming opportunity starting next week. The OSU Extension Spring into Wellness email challenge will begin. This is something that we do twice a year. It runs for a 6-week period, and during those 6 weeks, you can sign up to receive 2 emails each week that contain different tips and ideas and information and encouragement to promote wellness. So our spring wellness challenge will start next week, and the theme is the different dimensions of wellness. So you are welcome to sign up for that if you're interested. It's go.osu.edu/LHLW Franklin. Any questions or comments this evening? I will also copy the survey link that Jamie shared at the beginning. I know they appreciate having feedback on the library programs, what you enjoyed and what you might like to see in the future. If there are no questions or comments, then I thank you for coming tonight, and hope that you have success in developing a mindful eating practice, and hope to perhaps see you again in an upcoming program.